Hey guys, not a scroll, just Matt Rob. We're live at New York Comic Con for the very first day. We got a lot of stuff to cover, so let's get going. While there was some pretty great stuff and some other stuff on the first day of New York Comic Con 08, we here at ComicMix made sure to get some great exclusives for you guys, such as an exclusive one-on-one with the NBC Heroes star, Peter Petrelli himself, Milo Ventimiglia. Right off the bat, Milo was here to promote his new book being published by Devil's Due titled Rest, and, well, I'll let him tell you about it.
Comes from a script written by a guy named Michael Sullivan, and it's a story of a guy who's a little down in his life. You know, he's behind in work, he is out of shape, he's just not doing so good, and he's a young man, and he comes in contact with an old friend who helps him to take an experimental drug that allows him to not have to sleep. And once he takes this drug, all of a sudden, you know, he's at peak alertness, and he has 24 hours a day to stay awake and do whatever he wants. So while the rest of the world is sleeping, he can get done anything that he wants to. So his efficiency at work is through the roof. He's physically fit now at this point. And his life is just seeming to go in that great direction of a very happy, full life. But at the same time, there's downfall to that. You know, if you can't sleep, you can't dream. If you can't dream, where's the reset button to your day? Every day. You know, you're in this perpetual cycle of a day that never ends. It just gets light and dark and light and dark and light and dark, and you don't sleep. And then also the effect that's going to take on the world. Now imagine if a drug gets out, because this is just experimental, the early stages. Imagine if the drug gets out and the world is 24 hours a day. Nobody sleeps. You know, it's bound to drive you mad.
You can expect Milo's Rest out by the fall of this year. And moving right along, of course, the big question we want answered is what's happening with Heroes this year?
I tell you what, I read the first episode that Tim Kring wrote, and I called him at 11 o'clock at night. I didn't care what time it was. I'm like, Tim, this is unbelievable, man. It gave me the chills getting back to that first time I read the pilot script, and you know, through that first season. I think you're going to see Peter behaving not quite like himself. I think you're going to come to understand the darker parts that are inside all of us. And I think ultimately, you know, this larger story that Peter is only a cog in, as well as any other character. You know, we're all pieces of the puzzle of life, and how our characters have come together is a mystery, and I think we're just looking to tell like another epic saga.
Heroes returns to NBC Monday nights with a 2-hour premiere on September 26th. Finally, being a star on one of the biggest comic book TV franchises today, when did you first really become a fan of comics? And what exactly does Peter Petrelli have on his comic book shelf today?
I was totally into comics when I was a kid growing up. You know, my dad used to take me to comic conventions, and I'd go to the local comic book shop, Fredonia Funnies in Orange County. And you know, I was into it. I was totally hooked as a kid. And, you know, I loved the Submariner, and I loved Batman and Robin. Random things like Ralph Snart, which I don't think anybody's ever heard of. But you know, I would just kind of like look at the cover art, and then, you know, get into the stories and totally be into it. God, there's this book called Drafted that Devil's Due put out, and actually Mark Powers is writing our book. He's writing Rest. And, you know, things like that I was blown away by, and really dug like the story in Wanted. You know, and then it's like the classics, man. I love picking up, you know, Batman, and even like knowing guys that write and draw for them, like Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. They're like, hey, you know, it's like I read that before I knew you guys, and now I know it, and I'm working with you, and we're all peers, and it's just kind of crazy. It's very crazy.
Thanks, Milo. We'll have some more great exclusives 3 times a day all weekend long straight from the con, so stay in touch right here on ComicMix TV.